Freedom! In the words of Bryce Mitchell. Welcome to the Fight Bananas UFC Vegas post-fight show. I'm Jonathan, aka Jonathan_MMA. We got the host of the Bree Experience, Bree Eckert, joining us here. Appreciate you joining us. How's you doing
Hey,
today?
hey. I'm good. I'm good. Always good after I watch the fights. I always get fired up. So, yeah.
Always fired up. A little bit of lackluster ending there at the main event, but overall not
Yeah.
too bad of a card. Top to bottom, it was good. Prelims kind of over exceeded expectations. The main
Yeah.
card overall, top to bottom, was pretty good. Like I said, the only disappointment really was just in the main event. So let's just talk about it for anybody that may have not missed it. Mateusz Gamrot versus Rafael Fiziev started off with a bang. The first round was insane. Fiziev was showing off incredible dexterity with not only his takedown defense, but his matrix-like defense when he's defending some of those kicks, just backing up and kind of leaning out of the way. But in the second round, unfortunately, he threw a kick, and with the power and the force that Rafael Fiziev throws his shots, the opposite knee that was his post leg ended up buckling, and it looks to be an ACL. I'm no doctor, but it seems like that's what it's going to be like. So it might seem like you are going to miss a little bit of Rafael Fiziev for the next 8 to 12 months, depending on how his recovery goes. So all best wishes to him overall, of course. But Bree, let's get to your thoughts on the main event. What were your thoughts on the one round that we see so far? And how disappointed were you that we didn't get to see a little bit more of it?
Oh my God. I was so disappointed. Mostly because this just looked like it was going to be such a great fight. It was going to be such a huge, pivotal moment for the lightweight division. And for it to end like that, man, it's so frustrating. But the first round, I mean, I thought they both looked great. I thought Fiziev looked incredible. His takedown defense was fantastic. His striking, obviously, he landed a beautiful combination in the first round. He's just so quick with his combinations. His hands are insane. So yeah, it was definitely frustrating because it looked like it was going to be a barn burner. And, it's just yeah, and it's hard to say now like what is next for the division too. Like what's next for Gamrot after this? He called out Charles Oliveira. Fiziev, obviously, he's going to probably be out for a while, I would imagine. I mean, I hope he recovers as fast as possible, but it seems like usually when we see injuries like that, it's not a quick turnaround, unfortunately.
Yeah, like you said, it leaves a little bit of a question mark when it comes to what's the next step. Of course, next month we have the epic rematch of Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. But for tonight and the implications of tonight, obviously this was ranked 6 versus ranked 7, and these are two guys that are just on the cusp of contending for a fight. So if Charles Oliveira loses, I do see that being a potential opportunity for Gamrot. But I think the sucky part for Gamrot, so for lack of better terminology, is he didn't get to show off a true win. He didn't really get to, and it's going to register as a win. But when the matchmakers and when Dana White are looking at who are they going to make the next contender, it might not be Mateusz Gamrot just because it wasn't a full, complete victory. Of course, like I said, it was a good, he got the victory. That's what is going to stay on the scorecards. But it was a competitive matchup from top to bottom. You look at some guys like he might have to go through a Beneil Dariush before he gets to the top there. That's maybe something you see next for him. So, let's talk about that. What do you think is next for Mateusz Gamrot? What do you think we see from here moving on from him?
Yeah,
As
I
Sorry to cut you off, as we are
hey,
joined
what's
by
up,
the
boss
main
man?
man, Mr. Dave Van Auken, seems to be joining us from a closet, maybe trying to keep the kids sleep this late at night. But Dave, appreciate you joining us, my man. Thoughts on the main
What's up,
event, the
brother?
one round we got to see, and how disappointed were you that we didn't really get to see a little bit more of it?
Dude, I just put out a tweet just a little bit ago. I'm like, dude, I don't ask for a lot, especially in the MMA guides. Like, to not have that fight for 25 minutes, I feel robbed. Like, I do feel a
Yeah,
little
I want
bit
my money
like,
back. That $1
like,
extra on ESPN Plus, give it back to me.
yeah, like, oh, man, just like, and I really thought about it. And I don't know if you guys talked about it. And I know you guys are 4 minutes in. I can't wait to watch the next 50 minutes that you guys go for it. And I don't want to fast forward your guys' conversation. And like, of course, what's next for both men? I know that's going to be like probably the hot topic for the next little bit. And like, if it's not a major injury for Fiziev, if it's like a 3 to 4 month thing, like I hope this fight has to be next. Like, there's just not a clear cut guy for either one, especially those top five is all stagnant and title fights. Poirier's not going to fight either one. A lot of American top team ties. I really do hope we see this fight Again, I just think that first round was so good. I thought Fiziev did a lot of good things. I even thought Gamrot was close to getting a couple of those takedowns. I thought the first round was great. I want to see it for 25 minutes. I really do.
I think if we would have saw it for 25 minutes, it would have been an instant classic, potentially
Yeah.
contending with fight of the year, because it wouldn't have just been one of those, Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler where it's straight striking. This would have been one of the most pure MMA fights from two complete fighters that we would have seen overall, and I think that's would have been the excitement of this fight. So, Dave, I'll throw it, or Bree, actually, I'll throw it back to you. We were talking about Gamrot and what's next for him. What do you think is next for him? Do you see him against Beneil Dariush, or do you think one of the guys that maybe loses in that title contender picture fights him next?
Yeah, it's a weird time at lightweight. There's a lot of kind of guys coming in and coming out at the same time. Like Gaethje, for so long was just an absolute monster at lightweight, and still is. I mean, the last fight with Fiziev was incredible. So it's hard to say, what's really going to be next. And then you've got Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green coming up. That'll be interesting. If Grant Dawson can get a dominant, decisive victory against Bobby Green, then I don't know, depending on Fiziev's injury situation, maybe Gamrot versus Dawson would be interesting. I don't know, two grapplers. And then also you've got Charles Oliveira if he loses, which I think, just early predictions, I think Islam will take that rematch. I mean, Sean Strickland just beat Adesanya, so I'm afraid to even do predictions anymore. But I think
this point, predictions don't mean anything.
I think Islam is gonna win. I don't know. I'll ask my mom and see what she thinks.
Three main event underdogs in a row. O'Malley and Strickland and Gaethje.
Crazy.
3 main event underdogs in a row. So is Oliveira going to be 4?
Insane. Yeah, but I don't know. It's hard to say. I do like that Dariush though. I do like that matchup. I think it's just going to depend on Fiziev when he can recover. Because if he can recover fast enough, or if the injury isn't as serious as it looks, then I want to see that fight again for sure. Because just please, MMA gods, let's get that one. Run it back.
We were robbed of it, so I think we definitely need to get this back. If not immediately, hopefully sometime down the line. So, Dave, I'll let you, key in between, Dawson, and of course Beneil Dariush. Of course, Dawson's our boy. We want to root for him, right?
Yeah, okay.
and Beneil Dariush. Who do you think Gamrot gets next, moving forward?
So, like I said, I really think Gamrot's in a weird space because Gamrot trains a lot of American Top Team. So you just think about it right away. There's in that lightweight, Gamrot and Grant is probably not going to fight if it's not for a championship, like them fighting, if Grant defeats Bobby Green, or when he defeats Bobby Green, if they're at 8-6 a set, like that fight doesn't make sense. Gamrot versus Dustin Poirier is not going to fight, Gamrot. That's like not a big money fight and just doesn't make sense. He just fought Benny, a year ago, 14 months ago. So like that rematch doesn't make sense. The two fights that I can see Gamrot going for, one is, I know this is going to sound horrible because everyone thinks, he deserves this Conor fight that he's been waiting for forever, or it's going to be the main event of UFC 300, is Michael Chandler. Like, that fight would be awesome. The rankings, it would make a lot of sense. But then it's like, does Michael Chandler go from Conor McGregor to Gamrot? Like, that's a huge fall. And here's a dark horse one. I think this one makes sense. I think he's a huge name. He just came from a big win from a big pay-per-view, coming off of an injury. How about Gamrot versus Dan Hooker? I like that fight.
I didn't think about that one.
That's a good one too. I know he's kind of looking to come back after that short stint at 145. Come in and kind of make his name back at 155 back again. So
he just defeated Jalen Turner. It was an awesome fight. He's got a big win there. He's like a really big name. I think he's ranked 9th. I thought 9th or 11th. He's somewhere in there. He's like right behind Grant.
Yeah, he's 9th currently.
Right, but the name's awesome. Like the name is good. And I thought Gamrot just fought up. So I think Gamrot should fight down. Like Gamrot should give a guy beneath him a chance to get his ranking. So I think Gamrot versus Dan Hooker, fight night main event.
I think Dan Hooker, no matter who you throw him out against, is going to give you a competitive, fun
Yeah,
matchup,
yeah,
right? I
yeah,
think that's
yeah.
what you're always going to get about Dan Hooker. But let's move on to this co-main event because it was an exciting one, right? We saw Bryce Mitchell, Freedom Bryce Mitchell versus Dan Ige, and it was overall just an exciting match. When we talk about full MMA, it was you expected striker versus grappler, but the grappling of Dan Ige was definitely on display tonight to an extent until we saw Bryce Mitchell get in mount, right, and get the position. But before that, he was landing beautiful shots on the feet. The left hook that was over the top. He was doing a really good job of kind of fake hand fighting with Bryce Mitchell, getting him to kind of paw out, take that hand away from his face, and then come over the top with that beautiful reaching left hook that he just does so well. He busted up the eye of Bryce Mitchell, but overall, Bryce Mitchell was able to get him on the ground, mount him a couple times, get his back a couple times, and do what Bryce Mitchell does. There was a moment in the third round where it seemed like Dan Hooker was going to reverse positions and get back on top of Bryce Mitchell. But Bryce Mitchell somehow held on, stayed on the back of Dan Ige, ended up winning that fight. 30-27 on the scorecard was a little bit questionable. I think 29-28 was a little bit more respectable when it comes to that one. But overall, exciting fight. It seems like Bryce Mitchell is a little bit back after taking on a really good rising guy or a really good guy in Dan Ige. Dave, what were your thoughts on that co-main event?
I thought it was a really good fight. I liked that fight. I was intrigued with that fight. It was the perfect grappler set against, striker. Kind of the co-main event and the main event was very similar in that way. We had this fight on Ben and Bananas, and this was like the fight we talked about the most because of Bryce Mitchell being like a heavy favorite in a way. And I was like, I just didn't think he deserved to be the heavy favorite. And I thought Dan Ige was a live dog for sure. I thought, and am I off on this one? I thought Dan Ige won the first round. Like, I thought
Yeah.
Dan Ige clearly won the first round. I thought Bryce Mitchell
I
got
thought
the
he won the
grappling.
second round, but I didn't think he won the first round.
You didn't think he won the first?
I'm gonna be the devil's advocate here. Yeah,
That's
I
good. I love
thought
it. I love it.
Bryce stole the first round at the end. When he got on top and kind of landed some ground and pound. It was a weird round though. The first round was kind of hard to score. But the second round, I thought Dan won the second round more clearly because he cut his eye open. Was that in the second round when he cut his eye?
Yeah,
Yeah.
second. And like,
Yeah.
when I heard the first judge, Bree, when I heard 30-27, because
Yeah, that
I
was-
thought Bryce clearly won the third. So when I thought,
Yeah.
and then going into it, I'm like, I thought Dan won the first. And then I was like, man, I thought Dan won the second too. So I heard 30-27. I was like, wow, Ige, they gave Ige all three. Like, and I thought we were gonna hit a split, and then they went all three, and I was like, Bryce Mitchell. I was like, am I the only one that thought Dan Ige won round 1 or 2? Like, and like, so I'm really trying to bounce it off of you guys. Like, where did you guys think of round 1 or 2? So Bree, you had Ige winning round 2. How about you, John?
Yeah, I had Bryce Mitchell winning rounds 1 and 3, and Ige winning round 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I had Dan Ige winning round 1. When he got on mount in round 1, Dan really did a good job of neutralizing that positioning for a
That's
really.
what I thought too.
It was a minute, right? He got him down with like a minute. He was able to get on mount, yes, but Dan really did a good job just hugging him, keeping him tight until like those last 10 seconds. I'll give the
Right.
credit where credit's due for Bryce Mitchell. It was a lot sooner in the round, albeit Dan did more damage in the second round. Bryce also had a lot more time in that dominant position. So I gave Bryce the second round, obviously Bryce the third round as well. But I thought it was extremely close in the first 2 rounds. If you want to give the damage part for Dan Ige in the second round, I can see where it happens. He busted up the eye. I really thought the fight was going to be called. Like when I was watching the fight, it seemed like the eye of Bryce Mitchell was covering and that he wasn't going to be able to see. Somehow he was able to continue. I thought that it was just a great fight overall. But, like I said, I do think Dan actually won one of those first 2 rounds, me being, I think, the first personally.
Yeah, me too. And like, we're all here, we're talking about it. And then, guys, I'll probably go for 5 more minutes. I'll let you guys keep on running with it. Let's kind of talk about the elephant in the room for sure in this fight. Like, where did you guys think of Bryce Mitchell with having the Bible going into it, even at the beginning, saying the whole freedom thing, and then him kind of going tripling down at the end? I thought it was awesome.
And he walked out to the Oliver Anthony song too. That kind of like put
him
it over the
donating
edge.
the money to Ige at the end. I thought was super cool. Like
That
that
was
was awesome.
dope.
But like then him like wanting to pray with them on. I just thought like I was like, like Bryce really went for it. Like he kind of tripled down on Bryce Mitchell tonight. That's what I thought, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Bryce Mitchell is
Yeah.
Bryce Mitchell tonight. Like we
Yes,
saw
yeah, there you
that
go.
he is
Yeah,
going to not do anything but be himself. We saw him talk that gravity is fake. He does not believe in evolution. So apparently the wildfires are, some man-made also things. So I love some Bryce Mitchell, man. I love characters in the sport of MMA. I think it's good for the sport because it brings eyes, good or bad, regardless if it's early signs of TTE or not. I think I love it. I think it's exciting. I was laughing my butt off when he did his thing, both at the beginning and at the end. For Michael Bisping, of course, for not giving him the mic at the end was also quite hilarious.
yeah.
That was funny. What were your thoughts, Bree?
That was hilarious. Yeah, Michael Bisping definitely wasn't feeling it. And there was a clip like before this fight of Bisping and Bryce Mitchell on a podcast, and Bryce Mitchell told him gravity's are real. Oh, that was funny. Yeah, I love it. I love when a fighter is just themselves. And yeah, he's got some interesting worldviews. I don't necessarily agree with all of them, but I respect it. I have friends of mine that they believe all kinds of crazy shit. So it's like he's being himself. And I like that he stands up for his beliefs and stands up for who he is as a person, and he's not afraid to be himself. I respect it. While I don't agree with everything he says, obviously, it's cool. It's cool to see somebody just like not care what people think. And I don't think I've ever seen anybody bring a Bible into the octagon. So
That was the first.
There was
the man had camo shorts and a Bible in the octagon.
Yeah,
Like
that's pretty gangster.
No one else can do that. Like Bryce
no
Mitchell,
one will ever out America Bryce Mitchell.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That dude. Yeah, that's
but
awesome.
let's talk about what's next for him, because regardless of his out of the octagon tactics, the man's got skills, right? And Ilia Topuria, the guy that beat him, is going to be fighting for a title down the line, right? So for him to lose to a guy that's a title contender, there's no shame in that. But I think for Bryce Mitchell, there's some next steps for him. He fought down a little bit. Danny Gay was, I believe, ranked 10th. 12th, sorry, and Bryce Mitchell was ranked 10th. So he did fight down. Maybe you look for him to fight up next. Maybe an Arnold Allen who just lost against a Max Holloway. You're looking maybe a Josh Emmett, who is also a heavy-handed guy, taking a couple losses, on the back end of his career, but has some good power behind him. Maybe that, can also get him the win too. It's some interesting prospects there for 145, unlike 155. The 145 division just has a ton of movement outside of the top, right? Outside of Max Holloway and Volkanovski, right? The rest of the division is absolutely moving. Bree, I'll throw it to you. Who do you think we should see Bryce Mitchell up against next?
Yeah, I do like the idea of an Arnold Allen or something like that. I think that in featherweight, it seems like there's a lot of strikers right now. So with Bryce Mitchell being more grappling heavy, I mean, obviously he's super talented on the ground. Another thing is, how long ago was that Topuria fight? I can't remember. It seems like it's been a while.
Last December, I believe.
Okay, so it's been almost a year since his last fight. So, yeah, it's hard to say just because, yeah, I don't know. I do think maybe Arnold Allen makes more sense just rankings wise, to try to get him up there in the ranking. It just would be nice to see a grappler, kind of work their way up there in featherweight and potentially be able to. I mean, to me, it's just like, okay, he's gonna fight somebody that Max Holloway has beat. It's probably
Max Holloway's beat everyone in the featherweight division.
Yeah. So, and then after that, it's like, okay, so that to me, that's the only way for him to really like move up is, okay, who looked the best against Max Holloway? I don't know. That division is kind of interesting right now too, because it's like, well, what is Volkanovski doing? What is Topuria doing? Are they gonna fight? I think we want to see what happens with that too first. I don't know, a lot of movement though in featherweight, which is good.
Definitely a lot of movement. So, Dave, I'll change the question up just a little bit for you. With Bryce Mitchell being the, not the, I would say the most grapple heavy guy in this division, do you think he has a chance of becoming a true contender at 145. Do you think that's within the realm of possibility for him?
For sure. True contender. So, like, to me, a true contender, Sean Strickland was ranked sixth, fought for the title and won, especially in the featherweight division. And like with a guy like Max Holloway, who's defeated literally 2 through 9, right? Like he's there. And like you think about it, I know this sounds horrible. He's probably one big win away from like one of those kind of like weird title shots, like what Yair Rodriguez is like. He lost to Max, but he was on a 2-fight winning streak with an Brian Ortega injury away and got it. Like he's just kind of that. And let's just be honest, he's he's out there, he's polarizing, he's over the top, kind of what Sean Strickland is. Like this is the featherweight Sean Strickland. So I think he's a contender. He definitely is. And kind of bouncing what you guys were just talking about, you said Arnold Allen. I think that's a good one for sure. I really like the Josh Emmett one. More about, I don't know, Josh Emmett's kind of been put through the ringer, and like Bryce Mitchell is not a power puncher. So
That's
just
true.
for Josh Emmett's sake, I like that fight. I just think if Bryce Mitchell wins, it's a good win for him. He keeps moving up the rankings, and like I said, he might be 1 or 2 away from a title shot. He's like that close away. And then for Emmett, like if he loses that fight, like he's not going to lose it damageable by like how he lost just by Taporia. He's probably going to lose it via submission or just in a really close fight, like how Ige lost tonight. So like I really like Mitchell against Emmett. Like that's the fight I would make. Same kind of thing. You can put that on a opening fight of a pay-per-view, or it could be one of those fight night main events.
Heavy opportunity there, like you said, with the polarizing figure like he is. You bring eyes to it regardless. So him versus Emmett, like you said, it would be a
Right.
good matchup too. But I want to move on to this next fight because this one was honestly an absolute banger. Marina Rodriguez versus a karate hottie, Michelle Waterson Gomez. And from the start, right, Michelle Waterson Gomez was actually able to get a takedown very
Yeah.
early. But after that, once Marina was able to get back up, the knees, the elbow, the absolute nastiness in the clinch work that she was able to, display against Michelle Waterson Gomez. She was able to cut her pretty early. And Bree, I was actually texting you that, man, that cut was nasty. That was
Yeah,
absolutely
that was
nasty.
rough.
And for her to do what she did, she made Waterson fold. Like she just made her absolutely fold. There was every moment that referee gave her every chance to stay in that fight. Even with a couple seconds, with 24 seconds left in the first round, a kind of questionable in my decision to kind of stop the fight with that little time to check a cut. With the way the momentum is going, you let Marino kind of see if she can finish that fight at that point. At the end of the round, then you check it out. I think that kind of lit a fire under Marina because those last 24 seconds of the first round was hell for Michelle Waterson Gomez. And I think from there, we see that Marina, could still potentially be one of the contenders in this division that could be fighting for a title within a year and a half, with what she's done tonight. Dave, thoughts on her performance?
Insane. Yeah, definitely top tier performance. I think Marina had the best performance of the whole night out of any performer that fought. Just top notch. I thought Marina had the championship caliber, fight a year ago, 15 months ago. I know she had the 2 losses in a row, and it was one of those like, man, she's like 35, 36. Is she ever going to get back into it? And after a night like tonight, she is. I know she doesn't do great against the grapplers, and Michelle went there right away for 30 seconds. And it was just one of those like flip the switch. I think she was like, okay, I'm over it. Like people stop grappling me. Like I'm going to get up and get nasty, throw elbows to her. And back to the Michelle thing, and I saw a great tweet on it. Fight Bananas, we posted it. We saw the Usman kids crying on it. Parents and dude, guys, I think I posted plenty of me coaching my son's soccer pictures this morning. I'm like the most parent person ever. Do not bring if I ever became a fighter, I would not bring my kids to a fight. Like that was horrendous. Like just the visual, because sometimes you can be in a worse beating, but when you're bleeding like that, it looks so bad. And everything. And then the person tweeted about it, and then I heard another person who was there, like her 2 girls were like screaming, crying. Like they said it was like really hard to watch and really like just a scene, you know what I mean? So like, oh my goodness, I was happy that when they ended it because they could have ended it after the fight, like after the first round. Like they could have just been like,
Yeah.
hey, it's not going well. Like it's not. Her face is busted, whatever. But I give a lot of credit to Michelle. Like she did. She threw it out there. She busted. She did what she needed to do. But like, wow. Like Marina was just, she was on it. Like she was on one tonight for sure. Like congratulations to her.
Yeah, to your point, Michelle, there was a nice visual when she was smiling with the blood running down her face.
Yeah.
I think that was after they kind of restarted that fight in the first round. So shout out to her for just being tough as hell and lasting through the fight. Many other fighters would have folded a lot sooner, but there was times where she was getting elbowed, getting kneed, and then she threw a random front kick to try to keep some space and do some things. Bree, thoughts on the performance from Michelle or from Marina Rodriguez?
Yeah, that was a great performance. Her Muay Thai is just absolutely incredible. She mixes up her attacks really well. She's just, yeah, she put on a clinic and she did so much damage so fast. And especially in that weight class, like, and especially with a fighter like Watterson, who really kind of, it seems like fights with more of like a point style.
Yeah. Good
For her
point.
to just absolutely demolish her like that, wow. Like I wasn't expecting that, I'll be honest. Like I was expecting it to go to decision.
Me too.
You just don't see finishes that often in that weight class like that, like stoppages, TKOs, knockouts. You just don't. So Marina's dangerous. She really is. Her knees are incredible. She called out Tatiana Suarez too. So I don't know. That's an interesting fight. Tatiana Suarez undefeated. Marina's got some dangerous Muay Thai. I don't know. That'll be interesting to see who she fights next if she
I
gets
love
that
that
fight.
call out. Like no one calls out
Yeah,
Tatiana Suarez. No
right.
one calls out Kazmat Chimaev. Like I love that call out. Like that is, that's, jeez, I love that. Talking about call outs, you guys deserve a call out. You guys are amazing. Jonathan is the best. He's the best post fight game guy in the business, killing it at Game Bread. Bree is absolutely slaying it. Everything you're doing on your pod, Bree, and everything you're doing for Fight Bananas. But I'm running. I said I was going to do it, John, for 5-10 minutes. It's been 22 minutes. I'll talk for 2 hours with you guys. You guys are the best.
Hey,
So I'm
before you
running.
head out though, I want you to do
Yep.
one thing for me. Give me
Yep.
a quick thoughts on our boy Brian Battle and his performance.
Dude, I'm a
Yeah.
big Brian Battle guy. I was texting with him just an hour ago. Absolute stud, star, 4 out of 5 wins. The one loss was literally a horrible fight that he took on 10 days notice that he almost like knew now that he probably shouldn't have taken, but it is what it is. Lost probably round 1. It was a really close round. Was, got hit hard at the end of the first round, came back to win to get the submission. Just love the whole, just everything that he's doing right now, all the moxie, just the out of the game, the same thing. Like he's really developed into, I don't want to say a character, but I just think you'll get this, John. He's a WWE wrestler now. It's like he's turned up into 11. Like he's Brian Battle turned it up. I love it, dude. He's such a big welterweight. He's humongous, and you saw that tonight with him and AJ Fletcher. I felt like it was 2 different weight classes in there, and I'm excited, man. Like, yeah, he said he's the king of the Apex. Dude, huge future, dude. Love the kid. I do a lot, so big things for him for sure.
Hey, I want to shout out to the main man, Mr. Dave Van Auken. Appreciate everything you're doing. Congratulations on all the big moves that you've been going, commentating fights, in ring, press conferences. Make sure you guys follow Fight Bananas. Make sure you guys follow the main man, Mr. Dave Van Auken. Appreciate you blessing us with your presence and have a great night.
Later, guys. Be good. Later, Bree.
Peace. Bye.
Bang, bang. That was the main man, Mr. Dave Van Auken. Transitioning this into our next fight, Mr. Brian Pooh Bear turned Butcher battle with an epic performance. And it was great, right? In the first round, he had a little bit of adversity. He was doing a really good job keeping his distance, using that front kick, pretty much like Dominic Cruz said, like a jab, right? He was just using it in such a well-fashioned manner. But there was just a point where little small slip up, essentially, where while he was getting up from essentially defending a takedown, his opponent got him with a clean elbow, rocked him. But what he said in the post fight, he's like, man, that's nothing. What do? Just get right back up, right? And that's what he did. He got right back up, essentially got right back into the fight. In the second round, he was able to get the fight on the ground, get on the back, get that rear naked choke, call it a night. Bree, thoughts on Brian Battle and his performance tonight?
Ah, that was a beautiful performance. Yeah, I mean, he looked really good. He was doing a great job controlling the octagon, pressuring, using, like you said, using his range, using those kicks to stay at range. And man, and he got dropped. He got dropped. He didn't get dropped super bad to the point where I was like, oh no, the fight's gonna be over. But he got dropped bad enough that I was like, okay, he's got to be careful. And then for him to come back and face that adversity, and then end up getting AJ on his back, taking it and getting the rear naked choke. And I thought it was really interesting the way that he took the back too. And just, yeah, I mean, even kind of using his range a little bit on the ground, like it was really interesting to see, like you said, it kind of looked like they were two different weight classes. I mean, AJ obviously looked like, a little bit more stocky, more muscular. And then Brian just super long, lean, using his range. So yeah, I thought it was a beautiful performance. I'm excited to see what he's gonna do next. I mean, he's on a hot streak now. And yeah, King of the Ape. That's funny. King of the
King of the
Apex.
Apex. I mean, shout out to him for having the Dragon Ball Z tattoo with Shenron going up the arm and on the back. Obviously, he's been on one of these post fight shows before, so super awesome that he was able to get the win tonight. He's been continuing to grow into a better fighter every time we see him out. Right.
Yep.
Obviously, the weight transformation. First of all, for him to be able to shed all that weight, go down to 170, and now be a threat with the amount of range and length that he has in this division. It's going to be a problem for a lot of fighters. And for him just to continue to develop with the striking, with the grappling. And like he says, he may not be the best, just pure grappler, but when it comes to MMA grappling, that man can do it. Like he has a really, really good, not only counter wrestling, but offensive game as well to be able to take it. We saw when he was in, the Ultimate Fighter, he was able to be picked last and then able to win the entire thing. So shout out to Brian Battle, man. We love the guy here at Fight Bananas post fight show. But I want to talk about maybe some couple options for him next. We got maybe like a Muslim Salikov. I was looking. Max Griffin, is a guy that lost to Michael Morales and lost to Neil Magny. That's kind of on the edge. He's definitely a character. Everybody knows who Max Griffin is. He's always carried himself sharp. Santiago Ponzinibbio coming off a loss against Kevin Holland. Maybe that's also a potential bigger name to help grow what Brian Battle is. Obviously, he's ranked unofficially on where I'm looking somewhere 30s, 40s. Where do you think he should? Where do you think he should be fighting at next?
Yeah, I like the idea of all the names you mentioned. I think for him, he does kind of have a little bit of that star potential. I think if he continues to do what he's doing and kind of grow that fan base and keep his name out there, I think he's going to be able to get some good fights. I think that he might be able to work his way up the rankings faster than you think. I mean, I I like the idea, the Ponzinibbio fight. That sounds kind of interesting. Just because, yeah, he is a bigger name. I definitely think putting him against a big name next would be good. I mean, he was on a main card tonight, so yeah, and with him having the Ultimate Fighter experience and all that, I think you could sell a big fight for him. I really do. So I'd like to see him face somebody. I'm trying to think if I want to see him face like a striker, grappler. I don't know. But I definitely think it needs to be a bigger name, and I think something that's going to get him closer to moving up in the rankings. And yeah, I mean, he's got the potential to be a huge star for sure. He's very likable. He's fun. He's got a fun personality. So yeah, I'm excited about him, and he's got the talent to back it up.
Absolutely. I think when you have both the talent and the personality, that just makes for the star, right? Like you've seen that over and over again. That's what
And
makes
his
for people.
name, Brian Battle. That's like such a perfect fighter name. I love it.
Like when Michael Bisping was like he used his name as like a perfect way as like comparing what he's doing with the fighting. It was just great. Like you said, great name, great personality, great fighting skills. Just looking at at the end or at the edge, obviously you have like Neil Magny and Michael Chiesa at the bottom of the welterweight rankings. Even below that, you have some guys like Li Jingliang, who's like a really good, well-rounded fighter. Maybe somebody that's just on the edge of the rankings as well. D-Rod lost to Ian Gary and Neil Magny as his last 2 losses. So that's somebody who lost to guys that are just on the cusp of rankings as well. So, a lot of options there for Bryan Battle. Like you said, I think you throw him on a pay-per-view card next, main card. He can bring some eyes, and he's a fun character. The interview with Mike Bisping as well at the end was also something that helps us grow his
You know what
character.
I'm saying?
Know what I'm saying? And, I mean, he has such a fun, lovable way about himself. I think it's awesome to see him
Yeah.
just grow into himself, right? And grow into that one. Shout out to Bryan Battle for getting the dub. Let's get into the opening of this card here. Charles Jourdain versus Ricardo Ramos. And there was a point in this fight where Ramos was in side control, and inside control, you can never get a guillotine. And Charles Jourdain was holding on to this guillotine and holding on to the neck. And I'm like, man, why is he holding on so much? And out of nowhere, before the end of the first round, he was able to actually get the legs wrapped up around him. It seemed like Ramos was actually going to be able to pop his head out, but he got the tap. Ramos got the tap. Charles Jourdain with another guillotine in the apex. Seems like he loves doing it down here in Vegas. But man, I'm a huge fan of Charles Jourdain. I love his fight style. I love what he brings to the octagon. And I'm a big fan of his overall. And for him to get the win, I think just tonight out of nowhere, like an RKO at Randy Orton, absolutely beautiful. What do you think about Charles Jourdain tonight?
I thought he looked great. I love watching him fight, like you said, and he's so well-rounded, and I think that's what makes him so dangerous is that, not only is he dangerous on the feet, but yeah, he's a high-level black belt himself. He's good on the ground too. So, they put him up against these jiu-jitsu guys and they're like, "Oh, he's going to get submitted." It's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. Like, you put him up against Kron Gracie and look what happened there, and then, now you put him against Ramos, and he's just, he's dangerous because he's so good in so many different areas. And I think we're starting to see that more with a lot of fighters, seeing just a lot more well-rounded fighters coming up. Whereas, in the early days of MMA, it's like jiu-jitsu versus striking versus Muay Thai, like all these different styles. And then now you have more of like an MMA fighter where you have just like somebody who's just super dangerous in all these different areas. So I think that's what Charles Jourdain really brings to the table. And I was excited to see him get that win, and it was impressive. It was a great win, great submission. Man, yeah, he's dangerous.
Definitely. And to your point, we talked about this on one of the early shows of our post fight. It's just the growth of MMA overall, right? When you look at the early days of MMA, it wasn't MMA, right? It was one style versus another style. But now you're starting to see these athletes who grew up training MMA and not just training boxing, not just training jiu-jitsu, right? They started and they trained the entire circle and made sure they're completely well-rounded. So they're dangerous, like you said, in all areas. You look at a guy, unfortunate, but a guy like Fiziev, not necessarily the best submission guy, but his counter wrestling, his ability to just be dexterous and in the clinch and be on top when he's on top, get those, good strikes. Like, he does such a good job in all areas, and it was so sad to see him get injured tonight. I really hope he's able to get back. But like you said, the new guys like Fiziev and guys that are coming up, the Ian Garys, another guy who's great on the ground, great on the great on the feet as well. They're just young and they're able to do it all. So it's so exciting to see when you see guys like Arman Sarukian, one of my favorite personally, guy that can strike and get the guy that can grapple as well. So lots of guys, especially with these young ones coming up. Let's show a little bit of love to prelim. I think I know what your answer is going to be, but I want you to give me what's your favorite prelim on the night and break it down for me a little bit.
My favorite prelim of the night. I think I'm gonna have to go. Oh, I'm gonna have to go probably Tim Means versus Andre Fiallo. That was a fun fight. But also Dan Argueta versus Miles Johns. That was a good one too. So I don't know. Those were both really good fights. What was your favorite?
Yeah, I would have to go with definitely the Miles Johns versus Argueta one. I want to know what the hell Argueta's chin is made of, because it's obviously definitely the same thing that Chris Moutinho's chin is made of, because all the shots that Miles Johns was swinging and looping, when you talk about looping punches and a guy that telegraphs the shit out of his punches, that's Miles Johns. But he connected and he landed, and for some crazy reason, Dan Argueta was able to stay on his feet the entire time. There were points, of course, where Argueta was able to get it down, but Miles John did a really, really good job getting it back up on the feet, made him work for the takedowns when he get there, but it was an absolutely fun fight. But like you said, Tim Means versus Andre Fialho. First of all, Tim Means entering his 50th MMA fight tonight. So shout out to the boy for doing that. The Dirty Bird still flying tall. But for him to get a win over Fialho the way he did was absolutely crazy, man. Like the fight was a little bit back and forth. There was times where, Means did Fialho had Means backed up against there. And as Fialho was actually, pressuring up Means against him in the first round, Means dropped a dirty knee that actually dropped Fialho. That was absolutely beautiful. And, the fight just ended up going all the way till the end, and where Fialho just folded. It ended up being Tim Means cracking him, getting the win, getting the dub. Absolutely beautiful win. Like I said, those two were my favorite as well. Let's play one of our games, Bree. I don't think you have probably, or maybe you've watched, so you might already looked at it, so I'm gonna say don't look at your phone right now. Let's play Guess the Bonus. Right, there was 2 performance bonuses and 1 fight of the night. What were your what are your guesses for the 2 performance bonuses, and which one was fight of the night?
Ooh, that's a tough one because there were a lot of good performances tonight. Man, that's tough. I would say Marina Rodriguez has got to be one for performance of the night. And then maybe Brian Battle? I don't know. I don't know who I would pick for the other one. Because I can't look on my phone.
Yeah, there were some good fights. I mean, you had, when it comes to finishes, you had the Brian Battle finish. You had the Charles Jourdain finish. You had the Tim Means finish. So those are your
Yeah, there were
finishes.
so many good ones.
Yeah. So a couple there.
Yeah.
Look, give me this. Give me your fight of the night also.
Fight of the night. I think I think I might still go Fialho versus Means. That was just such a fun fight. But I think Johns versus Argueta was a close second for me. But that's just my opinion. I don't get
Nice,
to.
Bree. Look at that. First show here on the official UFC post-fitness fight show. 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3, right? Not too bad. Brian Battle didn't
Hey,
get
there
the
we
other
go.
one.
I'll take it.
Fight of the night was Tim Means versus Andre Fialho. Marina Rodriguez did get that performance of the award. They gave the other performance bonus to Charles Jourdain for that beautiful submission.
Well, hey, that he deserves it too, just as much.
I think both guys could have got it. Honestly, I thought both guys really do deserve it. And
I think the comeback for me for Battle is what made it so much more exciting. Just like getting dropped and then coming back, and then that made it more fun for me. But I thought they were both beautiful performances, and Charles Jourdain really didn't have a bad moment in that fight. So that was good. That was a good performance. Both. I mean, like it was an interesting card because there was a lot of really good performances, some first, second round finishes, third round finishes. There were some controversial. Are we going to talk about that? We're going to talk about the which fight was that? There was one fight. Well, the Collier fight, there was an eye poke, and then the Brundage versus Malkoun fight, the DQ. What did you think about that?
See, that was very crazy because he was absolutely dominating in that fight. And I understand, it's a DQ because it was like a straight shot to the back of the head. It wasn't like,
that was bad.
They mentioned on the broadcast, it wasn't like during a scramble or anything like that. Like, it was a straight shot to the back of the head. And I was literally just watching earlier this week that one boxer who took too many shots to the back of the head and is now paralyzed, right? So I definitely want to give a shout out to the ref, albeit a tough decision to stop the fight and make sure and check on the fighter's safety. Of course, we love watching the sport. We want to make sure the health and safety of all our fighters is always a priority. So shout out to the ref for stopping the fight, albeit for it being a disqualification. It's hard. I would rather it have been called a no contest because, there was no offense he was generating in the fight. It was just essentially, he didn't have any winning moments, right? And
no,
if
he was
would
getting
have,
dominated.
if it was a close fight and he got hit in the back of the head or, something like that, okay, you understand it. I think you should have called it a no contest. You're running back a month from now whenever his mental health, his brain health is healthy, correct?
Yeah,
definitely is ready to come back, So, but I do think, like you said, that was a very interesting one. when it came to that.
Yeah,
But
it was. I think it's smart that he didn't continue because yeah, he wasn't winning the fight. He was gonna get TKO'd at some point anyways. So it's like, well, do I want to get my brain bashed in for and keep going, or just either take the free win or a no contest? Even a no contest would have been a better scenario than continuing the fight, in my opinion. So I think you're right. He made the right move uh in saying, you know what, I'm not going to continue. And honestly, who knows how he was feeling in there too. He might have been seriously not able to continue. I mean, we don't know what exactly they're feeling. We can't, like, you can see it, and sometimes some people are like, oh well, they're over exaggerating. Like when the Aljo thing happened with the knee, a lot of people were saying Aljo is like acting or whatever. So but I'm glad that he didn't continue. I'm glad that it ended there. It just seemed a little interesting. Yeah, I was expecting a no contest as well. That's what I was expecting.
yeah,
So
no, like you said, I think that would have been a little more appropriate. I want to shout out the comments. Sorry about that, y'all. I was actually on the wrong screen clicking on that. I was focusing on the show, y'all. My bad. Shout out to Charles. Shout out to Charles Barkley in the comments. Shout out to Power Structure. Shout out to everybody that's been watching us live. We appreciate it. Mr. Mike Beast Boy Davis in the comments joining us, the main man with the watch. Already know about the Dragon Ball Z task. Hey, appreciate you checking us out, Mr. Mike Beast Boy Davis. Yeah, but what a great card overall. Like I said, at the top, it did not end the way we wanted it to. But overall, I mean, you look at some of the fights we got tonight, it was an entertaining night of fun fights overall. And it was just a great one. But we're not going to have a fight card next weekend. Unfortunately, we'll have to wait 2 weeks before we see that. We will see you, Bree, probably doing the post-fight show for the Contender Series. So maybe if I don't fall
oh yeah.
asleep, I'll come join you on that one. But but I do want to thank you for joining us as well. Final thoughts before we close this out.
Final thoughts. I wanted to ask you because there was in the heavyweight fight tonight, Muhammad Usman versus Jake Collier. There was an eye poke. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. What do you think about eye pokes in MMA? Do you think they should? Because they have this new rule now where it's like you get a moist towel,
And an
and
ice
I guess
compress.
that's gonna fix it. That's gonna fix the eye pokes. But what do you think? What do you have? Do you think there's a solution to eye pokes? Do you think that it should just be an immediate point taken, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, so as far as tonight's fight, I do think the ref should have taken a point, right? When an eye
I
poke
agree.
is to the point where a fighter is debilitated the way he was, and it was very clear that it was an eye poke too. So you look back on the replays like they allow in some of these commissions, right? So you see that it's a blatant eye poke, albeit unintentional, right? He was trying to give himself space, and unfortunately the finger got caught in the eye. But when it's so bad, I think you need to take a point, right? That's my first point there. The second point I want to make is I do think there's a fix with the rounded gloves, and I think Trevor Whitman is the guy that's designed those gloves. But I don't know if the UFC wants to implement them just because of money and whatever may be it. But I do think slightly more rounded gloves where the hands are, just a little more, the fingers are just a little more in, because most of the time, if your hands are having to be fully opened, it's because you're, like you said, just trying to create space. So you're most of the time your hand is going to be slightly bent in naturally. So if you have that more consistently, the fighters are less likely to overextend when they're pushing away and maybe get a knuckle closer to being in the eye. So I think that's maybe what the solution could be. Of course, it's gonna happen at some point. Charles Barkley brought a really good point. Mo Usman might have lost that fight if not for that, because it
Yeah.
seemed like after that the fight really changed pace, right? And Usman, I want to give him credit for definitely building on the confidence after he got it going, building off that jab. That jab was beautiful. He landed some nice shots over the top. But earlier in the fight, Collier actually landed a beautiful shot that stumbled Usman, and he was doing a good job with the leg kicks. Getting away from it at points, but he was still landing some good leg kicks too. And I think Collier had a shot at winning this fight previous to the eye poke. I think the eye poke did really kind of suck a lot out of him and change the gears of this fight. And like Charles Barkley said, Mo could have lost this fight if not for that, but it was definitely a lot, definitely a big factor playing into that fight. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I thought it was kind of fight altering. I thought, I mean, you could tell as soon as Jake got poked, he was so frustrated. He's pounding the canvas and he was so mad. And here's the thing, like he's on a losing streak, you know. He needs that win so bad. And he really, I mean, shows he's got heart. I mean, he's St. Louis, represent Missouri. I got to root for my Missouri people, but you know he's got that Midwest heart that that we all see, and yeah, I thought for sure they were going to take a point. At first, I thought maybe the fight wasn't even going to be able to continue, and then for the I don't know. I just think that yeah, I get it. There's sometimes it's unintentional, but like I think if we just take a point for an eye poke, then there will be less eye pokes. I don't think it'll 100% get rid of it, but I think it'll get rid of a lot of them if they just take a point right off the bat. I don't know. That's my view on it, and I know everybody has their own thoughts. And I think they I thought they said that they did start like working on the gloves or changing the gloves. I don't know, and I don't know how much of the glove has to do with it. For you know, each it's case by case. But I do think that if you take a point for the first eye poke, that we won't see nearly as many eye pokes. That's just my philosophy. But we'll see. I don't know. I don't know. I thought I was excited that they were gonna, you know, trying to make new rules with the eye pokes, and then I saw it's like, oh, you get a towel. I'm like, oh,
I would say it's better than not having a towel to wipe your eye on anything, though, because
it's better.
Getting
It's
your eye
better.
poked, your eye starts watering. You know, sometimes it starts swelling
Yeah,
up. So now that they can give them the cold compress and a little bit of towel,
it's
albeit
better.
a very minuscule change to the rule that really doesn't take away the
Yeah.
eye poke, but at least the after effects aren't quite as bad. Like
Yeah.
you said, though, I do like that, right? Because if fighters know that, hey, if I poke this guy in the eye, what do they say always? They always say, watch your weapons, right? You have to watch your weapons at all time because,
Yeah.
you know, like we saw, an elbow to the back of the head can change a fight from being a 10-8 round or a finish to losing, right? And to taking that to a loss off your record. So, and power structure, that's a really good too, right? It is hard to judge the authenticity of said eye poke. So that's why I think
Yeah.
with brief point, it's a case by case thing, right? And that's
Right.
why, you know, case by case, you should be able to go look at the you know, monitor and, you know, take a point. If it's one that's, even if it's not intentional, it's an eye poke that can change the gears and change how the fight will go, right? Fighters need to see. That's why they stop fights with because of that, right? So if they have a obscured vision or blurred vision and they're not able to read the shots in a game of inches like MMA, you can't really just have a fighter go out there and throw his safety out there. Like you said, it's really definitely hard to judge the authenticity of said poke. However, with replay and with all of the factors and common technology we got nowadays, you should be able to see if a poke is bad enough, you got to take a point. You got to take a point there. But great point, Bree. Any final thoughts? Anything else you want to close up on before we roll this out here?
Yeah, well, and it kind of makes me wonder, like, if we've seen any eye poke. I don't remember if there were any eye pokes in Game Bread, because there's no gloves. So that you know brings up the point of like, is it the gloves? Because if there are eye pokes in bare knuckle MMA, then the glove aspect of it becomes a little bit less relevant. So I don't know. That'd be interesting to see, like. Kind of, I'm going to be paying attention a little bit more next time, see if there's any eye pokes. I know Anthony Njokuani, I think in his fight, he thought it was an eye poke, but I think it was just from the knuckle, like not being used to being hit with a bare knuckle, thought it was an eye poke, which that's an interesting point too. You know, with no gloves, it's, I don't know, it's interesting. But yeah, I thought it was a great card. Unfortunate ending to the main event, but yeah, that's so frustrating, man. That was going to be such a good fight. So yeah, so heartbroken for Fiziev too. Hopefully that's not. I mean, it looked like a bad injury. Hopefully it's not too bad. Hopefully he can recover and come back because I'm really excited about him. He was one of the lightweights I was most excited about. So and Gamrot too. Yeah, heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking ending there for sure. Like you said, I'm a big Fiziev fan. And for him to lose like this, and not just lose, but have an injury where you always hope with modern medicine, obviously it's way better nowadays, but you always hope guys can come back with the amount of
Yeah,
torque and with the amount of, you know, generation of power these guys use to get these kicks, and especially with Fiziev, the power he has, it's absolutely crazy. So hopefully he's able to recover. But Bree, I want to thank you for joining in on the post fight show tonight. The next one we got is going to be Mr. Grant Dawson versus King Bobby Green. It's going to be an excellent one. Maybe Bree will be here. Hopefully Blake will be here. Blake, we miss you, buddy. But overall, like you said, great card, top to bottom. We saw some great fights. But thank you guys in the comments for checking us out. If you're not already, make sure you guys follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, like us, and follow us on YouTube and subscribe and do all that good stuff. Make sure you guys follow the podcast feed. If you're just listening to the audio on your way to work, we appreciate you guys as well. But until then, we'll see you guys after the next fight. Hope you guys